Good morning. I think everyone is of you are doing great. Today we are going to study about biostatistics. There are many people, many doctors, many students who want to study biostat and they want to learn about biostat. But in a country like Pakistan, we have very less research enthusiasm and we are very less into the research process. That's why we are also very less in learnings in the biostat. So this video is not only for the USMLE students, but also those who are doing any research or are doing MPH or any study that involves epidemiology, and they need to know more about the biostatistics basics. So we will start from the biostatistics basics. I will first start from the. I have made a few of the notes that I have in my hand. I also have the first aid book with me on my table. Biostatistics and the research process. Before we start all this, we must know the studies that we do and the research process, or the basic definitions or the basic equations what the studies, because whenever you are in conversation with someone, you must know that what is cross-sectional studies, what is cohort studies, what is case control study, and what is case series studies, what is twin concordance studies. So these are all kinds of studies like ecological study, and as well we study about cross over studies. So let's start from the cross-sectional study. So cross-sectional study is a kind of study in which the frequency of disease or the frequency of risk factors is assessed in the present. Cross-sectional studies help us to assess the prevalence of the disease. I can say that I visited a factory. There was a lot of noise, and there were workers, and a few of them had, like, suppose they have deafness, and so we can do a study that how many people are exposed to the increased level of noise and how many of them have developed the or have at the present the outcome or deafness. So frequency of disease and frequency of risk factors is assessed in the present. If we look at the first aid book, it also defines it in the same way. Then we come towards the cohort study. Cohort study and case control studies, they are just opposite in the way that in the cohort study we are taking exposed and unexposed people. We are taking exposure or the risk factor in the start, and we are seeing if the patient has developed the certain disease or has a certain outcome. So we take exposed and non-exposed cases, and then we see the development, either there is a development of disease or not the development of disease, in a retrospective way or prospective way. Retrospectively, we like see in the past that these we can see that exposed and unexposed people, either they have developed disease, we can see through the files, through the data, or prospectively we can wait after that we take like exposure, non-exposure risk factors like smokers and non-smokers, and we can see after 10 years, 5 years, either they have developed the disease or non-disease, either they have developed the COPD or they don't have developed the COPD, because smoking is one of the main risk factors for the development of COPD. Then we talk about the case control study. And case control study, as I said, it is just opposite to the cohort study. In the case control study, we take the diseased with non-diseased, and we see either they have a certain exposure, non-exposure. Like we can see the charts, the people who are diabetic or the people who have lung cancer. The lung cancer is one of the common examples. I will try to give one of the most common example in this video so that it may stay easy for you to get it. So if we can see that people who are 50 plus years of age and they have developed lung cancers, then we can see that in a case control study we can take people uh, of the same age, neighbor, sex, and other risk biases we can remove through these associations. And we can see that if the people have the history of smoking in the past or they were non-smokers, and in this way we can see that in a case control study we take disease and non-disease people, and we go more towards exposure or the presence of exposure or risk factors or their absence. So this is the case control study, disease with non-diseased, and we will move towards the exposure. It is also retrospective as well as prospective. In the cohort study, we calculate the relative risk, while in the case control study, it helps us to calculate the odds ratio. Then if we talk about the case series is one of the simplest study. In case series studies, we do what? In case series studies, we are taking a certain group of people and we are seeing if they have a certain disease, or we can their risk factors, or everything is assessed in the present. That is a case series studies, and there is no comparison group in the case series studies. Next, we will talk about crossover studies. In the crossover studies, like in the first aid, say compares the effect of a series of greater than equal to 2 treatments. Why do we say crossover study? Just because it order in which participants receive treatment is randomized. So, for example, one group is receiving placebo and the other group is receiving actual medicine, and now after a period of washover period in which we give a gap and then we can reverse the treatment, that is the group A which was taking placebo now is after a washover period is taking the actual drug, and the group B which was taking the um other drug now is actually taking the placebo line. So this is called crossover studies, in which we are giving greater than 2 treatments, and after a washover period we are reversing or changing the drugs in the groups. Next, there is a ecological study, and the ecological study, that's it from its name it is evident. In the ecological studies we assess the population, like we can see that we can compare the frequency of disease and frequency of risk related factors across the population. Like in a society with a certain population, we can see that this in this society we did an ecological study among the population, or in a population of a city or population of a country, and we assess the risk factors and the frequency of disease and frequency of risk factors. And another population, we also did the frequency of disease and frequency of disease exposure risk factor, and then in this way we can see the populations study. This is population study. In this way we do the we can also do the comparison, and we can assess and we can make our clinical side strong after ecological study. So ecological study is a population based study, and it compares the frequency of disease and frequency of risk factors in a group, in a population. So in this way we can measure the population data, not necessarily applicable to individual. So we cannot apply that to a single individual after our result come out, but it's an ecological study. It used to monitor population health, like COPD population, COPD disease. It is more in those people who are smokers. So in a population who smokes or have air pollution, there will be more risk factors of lung related health issues. So in this way we can do the ecological studies and can have a collective data, but we cannot apply it to a single individual. So these are the main types of studies that come in your day-to-day life when you are dealing with research or research work or biostatistics. There is another study that's called twin concordance study. Here it is written that we compare the frequency with which both monozygotic twins with both dizygotic twins develop the same disease. So in twin concordance studies, we are comparing the monozygotic twins with the dizygotic twins. Monozygotic twins are the twins that are formed after the fertilization. There is cleavage into two zygote, while the dizygotic twins are the one where there are two eggs and two sperms, and there is formation of the zygote, two different zygotes from the start. So uh, we are comparing the frequency with which both monozygotic and dizygotic twins develop the same disease. There is another study which is also called adoption study, but these are not very important. In the adoption studies, we compared the sibling raised by actual biological parents and the siblings who are raised by the uh, adopted parents. So this is also important to know about it. But the main kinds of studies: case series, case control, um, then cross-sectional studies, cohort study, and last one is clinical trials, in which we do the clinical trials of the drugs. That is also very important. In the clinical trials, we do the experiments involving the humans with the drugs, but basically we are assessing the efficacy of the treatment in those kind of studies. Like recently I was talking with a neurosurgeon who had his name in many publications, and he told that UK based research was carried out in which they did the clinical trial of transamine on the head trauma patient. Because of the inflammation and trauma that causes inflammation in the body, it releases different factor and that can cause bleeding. So they did give the placebo as well as transamine to the patient. Then they assess that was the transamine effective on the patients whose GCS was improved and who were falling into the survival category. And they actually find that transamine was in fact very effective rather than placebo in preventing bleeding in those who had head trauma. So this was the study that was carried out in the LHS Lahore, and it was funded by the UK-based company, and this study was quite effective. So it was a kind of clinical trial. It's a very good example of the clinical trial. So after talking about this, we can come towards the our basic things, basic calculations. So before we start the basic calculation, we must know that the sensitivity, specificity, true positive, positive predictive value, negative predictive value. For those, you must know the equations, because if you know the equation, you can solve all of your questions in the USML exams and during general calculation very well. So sensitivity is what? Sensitivity you to what you keep the true positive patient. True positive are one. For example, you are doing a test, hepatitis B screening test, and 100 out of 80 patients actually have the hepatitis B, and 70 come out positive in the screening test. So we can say that 70 are true positive, because and the other 10 who were actually having hepatitis B but they didn't we couldn't screen them, they were false negative, right? So true positive and false negative. False negative means the test is false negative. It is negative. It is not actually negative. It is not true negative. It is false negative. False negative means it should be positive, right? So 70 are true positive because their test is positive as well as they are having the disease, and other 10 who were actually having the disease but the test was negative are false negative. So true positive and false negative. So we need these two values to calculate our sensitivity. We keep true positive above, then divided by true positive plus false negative. So sensitivity is the proportion of all people who with the disease who test positive, or the probability that a disease is present when the test is positive, right? So this is the way we calculate the sensitivity of the test. Another way to calculate the sensitivity is 1 minus false negative rate. So 1 minus false negative rate. In the same way, there is specificity. In the specificity, you keep the true negative. Mean 20 out of 100 didn't have the disease. So they also test negative for the disease, for example. So true negative is 20. True negative divided by true negative plus false positive. For example, we do a study and in which there are 100 out of 30 patients, for example, they are um, not having the disease, but the test is positive. So we will say the 30 is what? It is false positive, because the test is positive but they were not having actual disease, so it is false positive. The true negative divided by true negative plus false positive. So this is the formula for the sensitivity. There is another formula in the same way. 1 minus false positive rate is the specificity. So specificity is the proportion of specificity is the proportion of all those people without the disease who test negative. So without the disease who test negative, or the probability that when the disease is absent, the test is negative. So this is the definition of specificity. When we come to the positive predictive value and the negative predictive value, these are very simple formulas. For positive predictive value, you have to keep it in mind. Probability that a person with a positive test have the disease is the positive predictive value. And the negative predictive value is what? Probability that the person with the negative test actually don't have the disease. Negative predictive value is what? Probability that a person with a negative test actually does not have the disease. For positive predictive value, you keep the TP over TP plus FP, true positive over true positive plus false positive. In the same way, for negative predictive value, true negative divided by true negative plus false negative. A simple way to know this is in the sensitivity and specificity, there are two different values in the denominator. Like in the sensitivity, there is TP plus what is true positive plus false negative, TP plus Fn. In the similar way, in the specificity, there is Tn plus Fp in the denominator. While in this positive predictive value, negative predictive value, you can see the in the denominator true positive. In the positive predictive value, there is true positive plus false positive, and the similar there is pp is coming in the denominator. This is an easy way who are good grammars and who want to recall things like that, so that's why I'm telling this trick. While in the negative predictive value, there is true negative in the denominator plus false negative. There is n. So this is an easy way to remember this. Although if you are good in concepts, then that is very nice to know. But some people are going for like easy way to catch the exam. That is not the right way. But in the end, when you have to do the things in the last chunk, sometimes these kinds of things help. But it is very important to develop your concepts very strong. Next, we will talk about the ratios, the odds ratio. Then there is uh, relative risk reduction. Then the absolute risk reduction, number needed to treat, number needed to harm. So these equations come very much in the exams and in the practice when you are doing actual research. Odds ratio, as I told, is calculated in the case control study. So for odds ratio, simply the formula is that you have to make your 2 by 2 table in which you keep the exposure on the side and outcome above. Like you can see exposure, smokers, non-smokers, COPD positive, COPD negative. This way you can make 2 by 2 table, and then true positive are A. Then you can go for the next table which the test is positive but they actually are not having the disease, that is What else? That is positive. So it is false positive, false positive, true positive, false positive. A, B, you name A, B, C, D to 2 by 2 table. But it is very important you are keeping exposure and outcome on the right side. On the like outcome you have to keep above and exposure on the side. In the similar way, if we talk about the next thing is we have to talk about the below two boxes. The above boxes we took the true positive, then false positive. Now the second boxes that are below in the 2 by 2 table, like smokers, non-smoker. In the non-smokers, we can saying looking at the exposure. Exposure is negative, and the disease is present, so it is false negative. And then in the last box, that is C, then C and D, Charlie and Delta. In the D box, we are looking at what there is. Uh, Now the exposure is negative, there is no smoking, and the COPD is also negative, so it is true negative. In this way, you can calculate all your formulas by 2 by 2 table A, B, C, and D. And the formula is what for odds ratio A into D divided by B into C. So you are crossing. You can multiply this value from this value, true positive with the true negative, and the similar way B into C. So you can multiply false negative with the false positive. So in this way you can calculate your odds ratio. For the cohort study, we do the relative risk. For relative risk, we have to do what? The formula, simple formula is A. You similarly will make the 2 by 2 table. A divided by A, sorry, you have to write A divided by A plus B, then divided by C divided by C plus D. And in this way you can calculate, you can see the formula here as well, you can calculate the relative risk. But in all these cases, the significance of the relative risk is that if the relative risk is 1 and similarly the odds ratio is 1, it means there is no associations. Keep it in mind, these kinds of study does not tell causation. This is very important. This is an exam question. They just tell association. So for the studies like these, you have to keep it in mind. Like if the relative risk or odds ratio or hazard ratio is 1, it means there is no association between them. But if it is greater than 1, it means the exposure is associated with the development of disease. If the it is less than 1, it means the exposure is not associated with the development of disease. Then we will come towards the relative risk reduction. We will also discuss the basic definitions, but the formula is very important. The formula you can do your calculations easily. For the relative risk reduction, you simply, if you have to calculate the relative risk, then you can minus it from the 1. 1 minus relative risk is equal to relative risk reduction. And if we will talk about the absolute risk reduction, for absolute risk reduction, we have to do what? We have to similarly, like in the relative risk, we were taking A divided by A plus B, then divided by C divided by C plus D. A divided by A plus B minus C divided by C plus D. In relative risk, we were dividing the A divided by A plus B with the other, that is C divided by C plus D. But in this case, we are keeping two equations together and we are minusing it. This is an important and simple way to calculate the absolute risk reduction. And attributable risk. For attributable risk, like the relative risk, you do what? You do what? A over A plus B minus C over C plus D. So this is the way to calculate the attributable risk. And in the absolute risk reduction, A over A, like in the attributable risk, for A over A plus B minus C over C plus D. Now we are reversing this value. In the absolute reduction, we are doing C over C plus D minus A over A plus B. So this is the simple way to do the calculation. Now for number needed to treat and number needed to harm, we have to do what? For number needed to treat, there is a simple mnemonic, that is star. Number needed to treat, there is 3 in that. So we need absolute risk reduction value. So 1 over 1 divided by ARR, absolute risk reduction, is equal to number needed to treat. For number needed to harm, there is a word or mnemonic HAR, HAR, HAR. So from attributable risk, you can calculate the number needed to harm. So 1 over attributable risk is the number needed to harm. So next is the case fatality rate. In the case fatality rate, we have to calculate the number of deaths among the diseased people. So deaths, our case is into 100. So this is all. Deaths, our case is into 100 is the case fatality rate.